Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a major revival event this weekend at the University of Oklahoma. One of the largest campus outreaches in American history, with countless stories of answered prayer. We'll bring you a first-hand look. Plus, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy leading a bipartisan delegation of members of Congress to Israel as he speaks to lawmakers there. As Israel just celebrated its 75th anniversary, a leading official looks at the key issues facing the Jewish state and how far it's come since its beginnings.
It's one of the great stories, if not the greatest story in modern history, of a people that survives the Holocaust, 3 years later declares a state with no allies, no natural resources. 600,000 Jews in this country.
Tornadoes hitting along the East Coast this weekend, touching down in Virginia and Florida. And powerful winds and heavy rains devastated parts of the South and Northeast. Learning the importance of sex and love and God's idea of intimacy from a biblical point of view, and why so many women are eager to hear this message.
It changed our lives drastically. In how God was healing us and how he was also helping us re-see the gift of our bodies and the power of married sex in the way that he created it to be a place of oneness.
And a taste of revival coming to Capitol Hill with a special screening of the hit movie Jesus Revolution.
This is a fresh story, and I think there's a lot of parallels between the Jesus Revolution days, i.e. early 70s, and today.
Those stories and more today on CBN News Watch.
This is CBN News Watch.
We begin this half hour with a surprising surge of faith continuing to spread among America's young people. And this weekend, it led to what some are calling the largest campus outreach event ever. Students rallied to fill the University of Oklahoma's football stadium for a time of worship with Christian music's Carrie Job and Chandler Moore, coupled with a concert from hip-hop star Chance the Rapper. Saturday's event sold out within days of its announcement. I traveled to Oklahoma City to bring you this up-close look at how it all came together. A sound is rising here in OKC, the Cinderella City. And it's coming from Sooner Nation, but this isn't a game, it's worship.
It's really cool that God continues to work through broken people.
That broken University of Oklahoma senior is Joshua Robinson, who got this idea for a massive Saturday service last summer, here at this coffee shop.
I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, and I'm asking God, what's next? What's next? Feeling the stress and the weight of not knowing what's next after college. And as I'm doing that, I'm trying to just brainstorm and pray, and I'm trying to find scripture to give me some sort of clarity, like tell me what's next. And to my great surprise, he's like, fill the stadium. All right, God, if you promise to show up and make it happen, then I guess that takes the pressure off.
After telling God yes, he asks his best friend and fellow senior Nathan Wong for help.
Normally, I would have been like, you're crazy. And I will say there's still a little bit of that. But coming off of a summer where I was poured into and encouraged to dream big, to set my goals so far above what I can obtain that they have to be out of the Lord, was really easy to say yes.
Consider this incredible timeline. Josh and Nathan and fellow students began meeting to plan this event back in September. They met every Wednesday to pray and plan. They wouldn't get university approval until 5 months later. The exact date, February 8th, which also marked the start of the Asbury Revival. 1 week after tickets were made available, here we sit today, and this stadium is indeed filled with more than 60,000 people.
Spoke the earth into existence.
Recording artist Carrie Job.
Yes, sir.
And Chandler Moore are also here to help fill the stadium with worship.
It's so dope. It's so encouraging to see FTS fill the stadium. This student-led movement provide a free space, a moment of generosity for people who don't know the Lord, who are going to be able to come out tonight, hear some of their favorite songs, but still feel the power and presence of Jesus. I think that's incredible.
Even hip-hop star Chance the Rapper moves the crowd.
This is important because our generation is broken and hurting. We know the problems that they're facing, and we understand that it's hard when you see all these issues and mental health, anxiety, depression. That's running rampant right now. And when we feel like we have the solution, when we know the answer is Jesus, man, are we doing our job if we're not telling people that?
Promise keep light in the darkness.
There are countless stories of answered prayer.
We're hungry, and we're looking for anything that can feed us. And the one thing I have found is the only one who is able to satisfy me was Jesus, was God. So while we are out here, while my generation is out here, we are looking to find something that can satisfy us.
I feel like the younger generation is lost. Like, they don't know about God, or they think that it's lame, or they have this misconstrued idea of who he is. So something like this is important because it shows that we're here. Like, there is a generation that loves God too.
Evangelist Nick Hall sat where this generation is sitting 20 years ago at a Billy Graham crusade in Oklahoma City.
This is not the end, this is the beginning. Many people who are going to turn to Jesus are going to get connected to small groups, campus ministries, and churches. We believe they're going to become disciples that multiply. For the people coming that love Jesus and those that are watching on the live stream, I believe that this event is going to ignite faith across the nation and around the world. We are launching something called reachmycampus.com to come alongside people from any walk of life that wants to book a space, dream big.
Coming up, we're going to take you to Israel, where House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is visiting with a bipartisan group of members of Congress, and we will hear what one top Israeli official believes is ahead for Israel's next 25 years. Those stories and more are ahead when we come back. Stay with us.
Your news channel, your shows, the stories you care about. Anytime you want, anywhere you want. Download the CBN News app today.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy is in Israel visiting the Jewish state along with a bipartisan group of congressmen. McCarthy addressed a gathering of Israeli lawmakers and talked about the shared values of America and Israel.
Just as America is more than a country, Israel is too. It's an idea about democracy and freedom fostered in the Middle East. There's a reason why you have challenges, but you have shared values, and we end up having shared challenges and enemies. And we're better together. The world is safer that we are together. And I think we'll continue to foster those.
In this visit, McCarthy prayed at the Western Wall, and he's addressing the Israeli Knesset today. He's the first speaker to do so in 25 years. He also told a Hebrew publication if President Biden doesn't invite Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Washington soon, he will. As Israel celebrated its 75th anniversary last week, one key leader is already looking decades ahead. The focus on how the nation can prepare for its 100th birthday. Chris Mitchell brings us that story now from Jerusalem.
Former Knesset member and Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, recently introduced his latest book, 2048, The Rejuvenated State. Oren hopes the book will encourage a conversation or debate like the one that took place prior to the state's birth in 1948.
Before this country was created, there were 60 years between 1880s and 1940s where Jewish thinkers around the world thought about the future of this state. And by the way, a number of Christians as well thought about whether this country would be a secular country, religious country, capitalist, communist, pro-Western, pro-Eastern. Many of those debates proved influential in ensuring Israel's success, our first century.
At this event, Oren explained how he wants his book to be a conversation starter for the next 25 years of Israel's future.
This is my vision. There are 21 chapters in here that cover just about every major field of Israel's future, its educational policy, social policy, foreign policy, Israel, diaspora Jews, Israel, Palestinians, Israeli Arabs, everything, gender issues, environmental issues. It's all there. And the idea is to get readers here and to a large extent in the diaspora as well to engage with my vision. Get angry at it. Throw the book at the wall. Do me a favor, but engage with it. And let us stimulate and let us facilitate a discussion of what kind of future we want for our grandchildren.
Oren says even with the challenges Israel faces, like a nuclear Iran and the current debate over judicial reform, it's important to remember how far Israel has come in 75 years.
It's one of the great stories, if not the greatest story in modern history, of a people that survives the Holocaust, 3 years later declares state with no allies, no natural resources, 600,000 Jews in this country, and we turned around and we made a country that has a army that's more than twice as large as the British and French armies combined, 7 of the world's leading universities. One of the few countries, by the way, Chris, has never known a second of non-democratic governance, along with the United States, Britain, Canada. Just a powerhouse of a country. Extraordinary, extraordinary stories.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Back here at home, weekend tornadoes struck along the Atlantic coast, touching down in Virginia and Florida. And powerful winds and heavy rains also devastated parts of the South and Northeast. CBN's Dale Hurd brings us this story.
Oh my God, that is a tornado.
This is the tornado that touched down in Virginia Beach Sunday.
Christy, go downstairs.
Virginia Beach has declared a local state of emergency after the tornado damaged as many as 100 homes, uprooting trees and sidewalks and causing gas leaks.
Look at the debris! Oh my God!
Miraculously, so far there have been no injuries reported from the tornado. In Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, Saturday,
I just saw a car flip over in front of me.
An F2 tornado packing winds up to 130 miles per hour, flipped cars, snapped trees, and damaged homes.
This is the scariest thing I've ever been in.
Oh my God, it's like right in front of them.
It lifted this car off the ground before slamming it down. There were no injuries reported in Palm Beach Gardens either. The driver of this car was reportedly okay. In New York City, heavy rain triggered flooding on major highways, forcing drivers to sit in traffic for up to 4 hours.
Bronx River shut down. Sprain shut down.
In New Jersey, 2 boys were rescued by boat after becoming trapped inside this flooded tunnel.
And we saw that we had a lot of water. It was at least 3 feet from what we could see. They were sitting on a pipe that runs the whole length of the tunnel. So they were sitting there and they were just trying to stay out of the water.
In the Midwest, the Mississippi River is expected to crest today after rising to its highest levels in decades in parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. Barge traffic has been halted along portions of the river. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, we're going to introduce you to the woman who's shedding light on an often taboo topic in the church with a podcast on sex, marriage, and God's idea of intimacy. We'll find out why it's received more than 1 million downloads. That story's coming up right after this. In 3 years, Francie Winslow's podcast has received more than 1 million downloads. She focuses on an issue that is often ignored in church services and Bible school lessons, sex and marriage. Abigail Robertson talked with Winslow about the impact she's having through her ministry called Heaven in Your Home.
Francie Winslow may not be your average Bible teacher.
Welcome to the Heaven in Your Home podcast. Today's episode.
But her podcast focused on sex, marriage, and God's idea of intimacy is deeply resonating with her listeners.
It's a challenge, and I did not know how much this message was needed. I thought it would be just a kind of a niche offering.
Francie's journey into this topic began in her own marriage.
And when I got married at the ripe age of 20, I didn't know how to flip that switch into now you can enjoy intimacy, now you can do it. And so that transition from being unmarried to married took me quite on a journey of healing and exploring God's heart on my body. Is it good? My sexuality, is it beautiful or is it dirty? Is it a gift or is it a burden? Is it a blessing or is it a duty?
Francie and her husband Wyatt started praying over these questions.
It changed our lives drastically in how God was healing us and how he was also helping us re-see the gift of our bodies and the power of married sex in the way that he created it to be a place of oneness.
Francie tells CBN News that while she never intended to speak publicly about sex, her husband encouraged her to tell friends about what God was teaching them.
I said, I will never talk to my friends about this because it felt so off limits as a Christian woman and kind of inappropriate. And I think what that showed me is how much healing God wanted to do, because there's nothing inappropriate about the gift of married intimacy. It's holy and it is God's.
As Francie pursues this ministry, she finds many women hungry to know more about God's design for sex and intimacy in marriage, and she helps them see how heaven comes through all of it.
I pray the podcast becomes an open door and an invitation to the voice of God and the healing power of God to speak into our most vulnerable places.
Do you feel like many Christian women are prepared when they get married for what sex looks like in a Christian sense in marriage?
I sadly don't. I'm getting emails from women who've been married 30 or 40 years who say, I never heard any of this. God's healing me. And now my daughter's getting married and I need help. What do I tell her? And I really believe that God is longing to pour out his heart and his spirit and his wisdom about this gift of married intimacy in a way that will heal generations.
Francie believes the church has missed an opportunity for thousands of years to talk about this subject in a healthy way.
It is interesting that I think women and men of every generation have missed the depth and the healing that God has for us in this conversation.
And the long-term silence has led to shame.
I do see a lot of young women getting married who are craving to have this conversation, not just about the act, but about the meaning and about the bigger picture and about their calling to live in intimacy without shame.
That's why she encourages church leaders to talk about sex.
I have a lot of leaders who have communicated with me and say, I want to start groups where we're talking about this. And I think that is where the beauty of God's healing work can happen best, is in the local church, it's in community, it's in real life relationships where you can say, this is how things really are in my life.
Francie explains when women experience restoration and freedom in Jesus Christ, the impact is profound.
When there is restored intimacy in a marriage, there's this ripple effect of love that can impact the children and our careers and our churches and our communities and our culture.
That ripple effect is expanding beyond Francie's ministry, and she tells CBN News that God is also helping her podcast reach an unexpected audience.
I've had testimonies from people of even different faiths who found my podcast and say that God is restoring their heart and healing their home because of this truth of his heart for our bodies to be truly bearing his image.
You say I am good. As a mother of 6, Francie also produces music to help kids learn their bodies are good and how they are created in the image of God.
I'm praying that those seeds of truth and dignity can really offer them an integrated faith that will help them not only stand up in this culture of confusion, but also have words of love to give to other children who are confused about the value, worth, and meaning of their body.
In just 3 years, Francie's podcast has seen more than 1 million downloads, with many women experiencing healing as they've also brought heaven into their homes. Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Coming up, a look at an historic revival in our nation's capital with a special screening of the hit film Jesus Revolution, complete with a Q&A with 2 of the key people portrayed in the movie. Pastor Greg Laurie and his wife Kathy will bring you the story when we come back. Stay with us.
Download the CBN News app. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Get the CBN News app today.
Revival made its way to the U.S. Capitol late last week with a special screening of the surprise hit film, Jesus Revolution, complete with a Q&A and prayer with 2 people portrayed in the film, Pastor Greg and Kathy Laurie. CBN's Matt Galka brings us this story.
Our country is a dark and divided place, but now there's hope, and it's spreading.
The words from the film Jesus Revolution echoed through the Longworth building on Capitol Hill. The real-life stars of the movie about the movement that turned hippies onto Jesus in the 1970s invited lawmakers and staffers for a viewing, sponsored by CBN and Hope to the Hill Ministries.
For me, it's about the staff, too, mostly because this film talks about a time when young people changed the world. And God has often used young people, and so you know this, and many people understand that work around Washington, D.C., that young people run this country. 25-year-olds and under are the ones that are the staffers here on the Hill. And I believe that if God can get a hold of their hearts, it's amazing what he can do with people that are wholly given to him.
Kelsey Grammer plays Pastor Chuck Smith, who welcomed young people to his Calvary Chapel in California.
It doesn't get old because I like to watch it with other people.
Harvest Christian Fellowship pastor Greg Laurie and his wife Kathy found themselves as part of the revolution.
This is a fresh story, and I think there's a lot of parallels between the Jesus Revolution days, i.e. early 70s, and today. So many parallels, so many similar problems that we were having back then that we're having now in an amplified way. So I think this message is really relevant for this moment in time.
The movie's message of revival resonated with members of Congress in attendance.
For those of us who serve on Capitol Hill, who are followers of Jesus, that are praying for a move of God again in our land, it's wonderful to be able to have this movie come and share about when it happened before and to plant those seeds and stir hearts.
I think it's super encouraging for us. It gives us hope for our country. I mean, obviously we're in the political realm, but the real solution is spiritual. The solution for our country, not political.
Jesus Revolution made more than $50 million at the box office with a budget of just around $15 million. And even though it was a big success, Pastor Greg says there are no plans for a sequel yet. At the Capitol, Matt Gelka, CBN News.
And it is time now for your Monday motivation. I hope you will join me in this message of encouragement as we begin another week together. God wastes nothing. Even your pain has purpose. Keep believing, keep pushing, keep working, and trust Him. There is a blessing in your storm. God is at work, working it all out for your good. Well, that is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time, as well as online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We would love to hear from you. Make it a marvelous Monday and join us right back here. Same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.